where do we want to go? That's a big thing that people don't really talk about. People
Yeah.
are really like, well, I just want to learn to swim. Like, okay, so why do we want to learn to swim? How do you want it to feel? How is swimming feeling? If you have it, what is it? I mean, it's the same thing that you do for any life kind of coaching thing. It's like, well, I, want to be this weight, or I want to earn this much money, or I
Yeah.
want to, be in a relationship. Well, why? How is it you expect to feel? What is it that you think your life is gonna be like
Yeah. When you
when you
achieve.
have that thing?
Welcome to Radiant Mom Rising. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and uplifted. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, and in each episode, we dive into amazing stories, insights, and conversations that help moms like you chase your dreams and embrace your worth. Let's rise and shine together. Welcome back to another episode of Radiant Mom Rising. Today, we're talking about something so many of us can relate to: fear. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of the unknown, or even fear of the water, we've all faced moments where our own thoughts hold us back. My guest today, Cori, is a swim school owner and certified life coach who has helped countless adults to overcome their fear of water and finally learn to swim. But what she teaches goes beyond swimming. It's about shifting your mindset, breaking free from limiting beliefs, and realizing that fear doesn't have to be the thing that stops you. If you've ever told yourself, I can't do this, or I'm just not made for that, this episode is for you. Cori is here to show you how to reframe those thoughts, take small, powerful steps, and create an environment where learning feels safe and possible. So, whether you're ready to jump into the deep end or just dip your toes into a new way of thinking, stick with us. You're going to gain some incredible insights that just might change the way you approach challenges in your life. Let's dive in. Welcome back. I'm here today with Cori. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
It's great to be here. And hopefully it's just the two of us chatting and not my cats walking in and out.
Oh, that's okay. Even I know how that is. I have dogs, so I can I understand. You might hear a barking here and there. So no worries, no worries. So why don't we get started here and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I am located in the Great Pacific Northwest in Seattle, where we teach adults overcoming fear in water and beginning swimming. Although we teach here in Seattle in our warm 93-degree pool, but because people travel in for our classes, we teach online and we teach on retreats and have all kinds of fun in the water for everybody who has never wanted to go past 5 feet.
Oh, I need to sign my mom up for this. She'd be like, no, she doesn't like the water, even though she's from Trinidad. So you think an island girl, but
Yeah. Well, it's that's a really common tale. And I love, so you say your mom needs it. So does that assuming that maybe you know how to swim?
I do.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because we always find there's two very loving choices that people make around swimming. And one is be afraid, right? Teach your children, maybe somebody taught your mother to be afraid, especially if she lives on an island. If she's afraid, she never went around the water, she's not going to drown. The other path is go learn, right? And so your
Yes.
mom probably was on that side of like, okay, I was taught this route, but I'm going to make sure my kids get this other route.
Yeah, well, it's funny because for me, my story with learning how to swim is we used to have my mom used to put us in daycare at the YMCA
Hmm.
and used to have a swimming buddy. And I remember one time my swimming buddy wanted to go into the deep end and I couldn't because at the time I couldn't swim. And I got in trouble for that, for even though they left me and because I wouldn't go to deep end. So I was determined after that. I was like, I will never sit out and watch everybody swim again. So the next time I was just like, screw this. And I just jumped in and stayed close to the wall so I could kind of grab it up. And I just started from there, just kind of self-teaching myself how to just do it. And
Hmm.
yeah, kind of went from there. So yeah, I do find this very interesting that you teach people and adults even in this field. So tell us a little bit about your story of what led you to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that just even you sharing the part of your story of like, it was this internal self-determination.
Yeah.
And that is a big piece of my story too. I am the kid who never passed a swimming lesson. I never completed a swimming lesson. And and really, because the reason why I didn't is when I was little and taking the classes, I didn't trust the teachers. They would do tricky things like, okay, swim out to me. And I'd say, well, don't step back. And they'd say, okay, I won't step back. And then,
Yeah.
I'd start going. I'm like, I can see you walking. I'm not dumb. Like, I'm having none of this foolery. So I never finished a swimming lesson. But, fast forward, I own a swim school, so I must know how to swim. Hopefully, yes, it's true. I do. But it was
Oh,
that internal, like, I still loved the water. I still loved being around it. I did a lot of what you described there of I went to the pool. I actually had my mom drop me off at the pool when I was a kid. And back in the days where you like looked up in a phone book, an old paper phone book, and I'd call them and figure out what time to go.
yes.
And here's my 50
Mhm.
cents. And,
Oh,
so I'd go and she'd drop me off. But I'd find a place. It was this huge pool, huge Olympic sized pool that was in our community. And I wouldn't be where most of the kids were over in the shallow end because again, this like trust thing. They're like playing games and goofing off and all this kind of thing. But I'd go way to the other side of the pool where there really wasn't anybody swimming, but there was a lifeguard.
yeah.
And I'd be close enough to the lifeguard. I determined, okay, they can keep an eye on me.
Yeah.
And I had this little space that there was a lane line and a wall. And I just got in and I experimented and played. And I played a game I called Lost in Outer Space and just like, what happens if I do this? And if I do that? So I just like figured it out on
Yes.
my terms and my way. And that is what's really bled its way into my swim school is okay, we need to help people come forward with their own authentic self and their own internal determination and internal taking care of the places that are fearful and taking care of the places that are curious. How do we have those components come forward in our learn to swim journey so it's very personal to them and successful for them?
Well, that's amazing. Like, what point in your life did you get to like where you realize like this is a need? Like this is something I can help people with. I'm very curious of that.
So I had my first inkling with my first adult that I taught. I taught summers at our community center pool.
Okay.
And I think I just showed a level of compassion and curiosity. So I was given the adults. But I had this one woman who she had a story, and at that time, like she was a very old lady to me. I don't know, maybe she was 60. But at that time, when I was 15, she was a
Yeah.
very old lady. But she was told growing up with brothers that girls weren't allowed to swim and be athletic. And she had this whole narrative thing. And I had this sense of this swimming thing was bigger than just being able to move your arms and legs in the water. It meant more to her. So that was my first kind of inkling that got me curious about adults and about the learning journey. And then fast forward, when we started our swim school, we were mostly working with kids, but we worked some with adults. And because of the way we structured our kids program, it did attract adults too.
Wow.
And I'd get an adult to swim across the pool and I'd say, well, how was it? And they'd go, I have no idea. Like this deer in the headlight kind of look. And I thought, okay,
Uh,
what am I doing wrong? Because they were doing all of the physical things that I was telling them to do. If anybody were to look at it, they'd be like, well, they swam across the pool. That's a front crawl. They're swimming across the pool. But I could see this disconnect from their internal narrative, their internal sense of safety, their internal, experience of it. Externally, they're doing the things, but that's where I really, okay, there's a disconnect between going through the motions,
yeah.
and this, we have to do this in all areas of our life,
Yeah.
right? We go through the motions. You may take all those happy Instagram photos. It doesn't mean the internal part is matching up. And so that's when starting to work with folks like that and then asking them questions and getting curious about it and being with them on their journey, this is where I started to transform and really see, there's something else that's needed here to
Hmm.
help them not just be performative, but to actually connect to what they really want, which is to feel good, is to feel confident, is to feel safe, to have fun, right? That's what they really want.
Oh yeah. I mean, it truly is like the underlying thing I think all of us seek in our lives one way or another. I think it's very like interesting and neat that you have taken this into the swim world like you have. That's why I've been excited to have this conversation because that's new. It's something I've never heard. What is some of your experience and what you've seen and learned with some of the people you've worked with, especially as adults, and their fears, held them back for so long from even embracing just something as simple as swimming?
Mhm. Um, Sorry, that was me looking over at the cats falling off the shelf.
Ah, I get to your love it. They're so silly. I've had many cats in my life.
Oh my gosh, so
Yeah,
much. Okay.
they're
Anyways, sorry for that distraction. So, the big thing, I mean, a couple of things that I've seen over the years that I think the water is such a interesting place to
yeah,
understand, which is many of us have heard the idea now of limiting beliefs. When I first started this work, that really wasn't a big thing, but we all kind of talk about and think about our limiting beliefs. And there's limiting beliefs, and that kind of goes in the category of how we think something should be. And how this ends up looking in the water is everybody thinks, here's a very classic one. Everybody thinks that floating should look horizontal to the surface of the water. And the truth is, when people make their body horizontal to the surface of the water, first of all, not everybody can do that. And second of all, it requires you to have tension in your body. Even as I know people can't see this. This is
yeah,
a podcast, but I'm holding my hand up in a flat position. To
yeah.
hold my hand flat means I'm putting effort in my fingers. I'm using
Yes.
muscles. And so when we have this belief that says we're supposed to look like this, we're supposed to do this, there's automatic tension in the body. And you're like, but I want to feel relaxed. People say swimming's relaxed. These two things don't work simultaneously. And so it's a very subtle thing to be able to see, what if that belief just isn't true? And we go from having tension in our body, trying to make ourselves flat and horizontal to the water, to being curious about, well, what would being having no tension in the body be like? Am I willing to let myself go into the water and have no tension in my body? And these are the kinds of questions that we have to ask, or we get to ask, and we get to be with the learner as they experiment with it. It turns out when they don't have tension, I mean, just like if you lay down your bed, if you don't have tension in your body, the result is that you're relaxed. But it's the limiting belief that I'm supposed to be a certain way that actually causes the tension. And so we get a very real, quick, in time shift of those limiting beliefs in the context of being in the water.
Yeah, I mean I mean, even it almost sounds like an analogy because it's like it's amazing how that is so true in so many areas of our lives. And when you really think of it, and that's a great just a great example of how that actually can fall into what you do and how that can help somebody to, shift their perception of something and their perspective of something. And it's just neat because do you do you find that well, I guess for most people when it comes to the water, is it I guess it's just is it the drowning? Is it the people afraid of like I know with me, the ocean is and dark water scares me a little bit. Do you see that in a lot of people some people that you work with?
Oh,
Yeah, of course, right. So what's something that you feel like is helpful for someone like that?
well, the big thing when we're afraid of anything
Mhm.
is one, is not to be upset with ourselves for being afraid. Like, fear is a very useful tool. It's when we apply shame to the idea that we have a fear.
Mm.
That's when we really get into trouble.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, there's other people in the ocean. I should be able to just
Just do
do it,
it.
right? They're
Yeah.
just doing it. I think it's Brene Brown who says, should is just something you could do, but with shame on it, right? You change
Oh.
it. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are people in the ocean, and there is plenty of ocean time that is safe and perfectly fine for a person, a human body to be in it. And there are times it's not a good idea for a human to be in the ocean. And there's certain information and skills and things that you need to be in particular ocean settings. So your fear actually can be there to serve you. So when we take the shame part away and then we can just say, okay, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of an emotional thing like I think I should know what I'm doing and I don't, and I'm going to feel foolish? Am I afraid of I'm not going to be able to get air or I don't understand how currents work? Right? When we stop and are very kind with our fear and to like, thank you, fear, for being here. Let's just see what is it that we really are worried about. And are there some things that I can come up with solutions for?
Yeah, I feel like when you talk about this, it's like in my own mind, I just see working with clients, like how this is so helpful in so many ways. I just am excited that you created this for adults because it is something, in life, there's just so much fun out there. There's so many things that we deprive ourselves from trying out of fear. And it's nice to see a way to help people to embrace that and to find their way of, you know, overcoming it and actually getting out there and enjoying it because, even for me, it's like, yeah, I have a little bit of fears with dark waters and stuff. Doesn't mean that I won't push myself to like get out there and still enjoy it and do things because Lord knows I love kayaking. But, it's funny for me. I know where most of my fears come from. It's because I grew up watching Jaws and all those movies, and I shouldn't have done that. But, but still, it's still a rooted thing in me. Or
Mhm.
even to this day, like when I'm in the water, even if I'm in there, I'm still like on edge. I'm very on edge. So I would like, I think that's a neat, like I said, what you've created here to help people pass that. So give me an idea of what it looks like as far as like initially how you kind of get to really know the person and what are some of the first steps that someone can take to really start exploring more about this for themselves.
Yeah, so it is about that having conversations around what is it that we are worried and concerned about? Where do we want to go? That's a big thing that people don't really talk about. People
Yeah.
are really like, well, I just want to learn to swim. Like, okay, so why do we want to learn to swim? How do you want it to feel? How is swimming feeling? If you have it, what is it? I mean, it's the same thing that you do for any life kind of coaching thing. It's like, well, I, want to be this weight, or I want to earn this much money, or I
Yeah.
want to, be in a relationship. Well, why? How is it you expect to feel? What is it that you think your life is gonna be like
Yeah. When you
when you
achieve it.
have that thing? So we really start with that because for most of the time, I mean, it's things like I want to feel safe. I want to feel in control. I want to feel fun and just joy of life, right? So it turns out those are things that we can give ourselves and we can create from the very beginning. If that's what you want as a result of learning to swim or any of these other examples I gave, how do we get that now at the beginning? Because if we don't know how to get that now at the beginning, even if you have the thing, you're
Yeah.
doing the thing, you're not going to recognize the feelings that you were hoping to get out of it.
Yeah.
Because knowing how to experience safety and fun and control and comfort and all those kinds of things, they are less dependent on the things that we are doing or the things we have in our life and more dependent on our internal narrative and our internal experience of these things. So
Absolutely.
that's really the big starting ground where we go from. And then physically, it really looks like what physical steps in the water or around the water do we need to do that you can be experiencing the emotional state that you desire?
Ooh.
So we're not going to jump off in the middle of the deep
Yeah.
end. That is not calm or know you can get air or feel safe, right? It doesn't have any of those things yet. But does sitting next to the pool, smelling the chlorine, hearing the sounds, touching the water, because your adult brain might jump ahead to Jaws is going to come out of this pool, right? So you start experiencing the fear. So we have to just, okay, slow the F down and
Yeah.
really get yourself connected to where you are right now. Where I am right now is I have air. Where I am right now is I'm smelling chlorine. This is a big one for a lot of people. I'm
Yes.
smelling the smells of being in the pool
Yeah.
and I'm not in danger. It
Yes.
reminds me of a time that maybe I was in danger, but I need to start to process and to see I'm not 6 years old and have that mean cousin who pushes me in around me. I decided who's going to be around me in this particular circumstance, right? I don't currently have water up my nose, even though, I've had water up my nose in the past, whatever the things are, right?
Yeah.
It's helping people learn how to be in the present time, to
Oh,
take in the present information, and then we can make a decision. Do I feel safe enough to proceed to the next thing or not? Right? And either answer is a really good answer as long as it's an honest answer.
I
It's a
love
real,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is getting true with yourself with that because I didn't even think about that. You do have those experiences when your kids have mean siblings or cousins who end up push you in and yeah, when you get water up your nose and the sore throat and all that from it, that's not fun. I mean, if you have an experience like that as a child, I can see how that would follow you and can
Hmm.
and make you afraid of that ex or that or at least it leads back to that emotional, learning about how when we react in certain situations, a lot of times it's not even about what's actually happening, but rather a trigger emotionally that's taking us back to something in our past that we had no idea about, or we're not even realizing because we're just responding and we're on autopilot so much of our lives. And that's a very powerful realization and knowledge that people should know because it really helps you to check yourself and to learn and understand yourself more when you start seeing certain behaviors that you're like, oh goodness, why did I react that way? Why did I snap? Or why did I don't like this? Well, let's start thinking about, where that might come from. Like what has gone into your past that could have led you to feel this way during that type of emotional feeling that you're experiencing in this moment when, a certain person says or does something. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking, Mary, about how you shared your story and in terms of being in and like feeling left out and being determined. And we can go back and thank young Mary for doing that, right? You learned some things, you learned this self-determination, you learned a lot of empowerment in that, you learned some things about the water. And you might find there's a time and a place when you're maybe in the dark ocean or whatever, that amount of determination and speed and like must do it isn't helping anymore.
Yeah.
And so then there becomes a curiosity of like, okay, thank you. And is there another way? And do I need that determine? Am I really missing out? Do I always have to keep going, 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 or I'm going to get left behind? Right. Those are the kinds of curious things that can come
Yeah.
in to change somebody's experience. So for somebody like you who knows what she's doing in the water to a certain extent, but maybe there's some more knowing in there too, or slowing it down. And
Yeah.
that might give space around exploring the darker water in a way that feels calm to you versus like, I have to like just get through it.
Yes. Well, it doesn't help because I know when I was younger, once at the beach, I've had two incidents. One where like a wave did take me under, and I remember being in fear, like I wasn't going to be able to get myself back up. And what was hard is I remember I was with my dad at that point, and like he kind of laughed about it, and it kind of really hurt my feelings. And then there another time. I actually got pinched by a crab. I'm like, and what's messed up is my sister was literally joking about it and saying, "Oh, watch out, Mary," picking on me. And then bam, it happened. And boy, I'm talking about I ran on top of water to get out of there. And so it's like things like that I never think about, but it also probably played a part in where on top of the movies and on top of those experiences, it led to me being a little like triggered in the
Mhm.
water activities. But overall, I feel like, especially with the journey I'm on for myself, it's really helped me to be able to embrace situations like that and to handle it and go into it, like you say, with that mindfulness of this and allow myself to honor myself.
Hmm.
And because I think like you say, what I love what you said is that we are so hard on ourselves. We always have that shame and that guilt, like I shouldn't be feeling this way, I shouldn't be this way. But we need to learn how to have some self-compassion here and understand, like, we are humans, and a lot of this stuff we didn't even ask for, that's been put into us from before. And so it's all about just recognizing it, loving on ourselves, loving that inner child within us, and
Hmm.
then just working on, well, where do I want to go from here? Where do I want to be now? How can I reframe this and create a new positive experience and a positive belief that's going to help serve me so that I can have a good time and do this activity without having that fear anymore. So I think that's where I feel like it's been extremely helpful in this, coaching journey and the self-discovery journey, and with what you're doing with people is incredible. And it's unique, and I love to see the unique stuff that we can find in our lives that really help people in so many different ways.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I love the story of, as you say, of reframing
Yeah.
that, like, yeah, a crab bit you and
No.
you still have 10 fingers, right?
That
Like,
might sound. No.
you took care of it.
I
Like,
did.
it
I
was
survived.
unpleasant.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
survived.
Yeah, you survived. It was unpleasant. You felt a physical
Yeah.
sensation, right? But you took care of it. It's a very, I mean, how we tell these stories. They're fun to tell them in these big dramatic ways. And we have to look and see, is that story, is that way of telling the story useful for my future? Is it
Mm,
is it 100% factual or useful to me? And
mhm.
it could be useful to you if it like is a fun party story and gets people,
Yeah.
going. So like we use it.
Yes.
But if you're like, I want to experience the water in a different way, then we kind of take these stories and see, okay, well, it is factual that I got, pinched by a crab and it had a sensation and I got myself out and I was wounded or not wounded or took care of the wound, what, like to really sort of
Yeah.
look at those things and to see, gosh, what is this story
Yeah.
that has raised right now, if it raises the adrenaline and
Yeah.
raises this like sense of unsafety in us, then we need to really kind of pull it apart and see, how can I have this story work for me? That is true. That is factual. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about it, but it's really actually true and factual. Students come to me quite a bit with like near drowning stories and things. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, though, you survived, like you are here.
Yeah.
Like, that is true too. And they're like, well, yeah, but I'm like, no, yes, and
Yes, well, and unfortunately, that is so many people's tendency, though, is they always see the negative in within their stories or within what's happened to them instead of focusing on the good that came out of it. And I get it. I've been there. Lord knows. I mean, phew, I grew up in a lot of negativity in my time, so it was very conditioned in me to always see the worst in a situation instead of the best. But I'm telling you, what's amazing is when you really can shift that and start seeing the best and the blessings even in disguise, because Lord knows I've been through some things in my life that could have easily defeated me or were terrible, but I not only survived it, but it actually ended up boosting my life. It ended up bringing such blessings that I never would have gotten without that destruction or without that situation, and me, like you say, overcoming it, surviving it, and keep moving forward and opening myself up to see that. So I love that because, like you say, with that, for instance, the crab story alone, I got out, I survived it, I healed the wound, I was fine, and I overcame. Like I was fine, and it was something that we can laugh about now for sure, but at the time for many, many years it was one of the terrifying stories that I told, rather than saying like, hey, I was good, I'm good, I survived that, I embrace this, I experienced this, but hey, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
yeah, yeah. And even at that, like I do definitely, I'm a strong proponent of reframing our stories in a way that's authentic and true and helps us for our own personal growth because we do hold on to stories and we tell them in ways that don't help us in our personal growth. And we don't want to, I think it's probably important to say, and I'm sure you'd agree with it, is that it's not that we can't have personal growth without we're not wishing upon negative experiences for people, right? Like,
Hmm.
as you had said earlier, there are these experiences that happen in life that we don't ask for, that we don't deserve, that they
No.
aren't like, you don't
Yeah.
you don't have to have them, but it is a fact that these are part of life.
Yeah.
These things are part of life. So what do we want to do with them for ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, it really is because we don't, I mean, like you say, as much as we wish we had control over everything, we don't. And like you say, life happens, things happen that we don't expect. And sometimes they seem terrible, but at the same time, it's, it truly is how you respond that will determine the longevity of how much you suffer. And that's something I remember somebody teaching me a long time ago that I really took to heart because I'm like, wow, the way we create our own suffering over things that sometimes hasn't even happened yet, or because we're just so focused on the negative or the victim side of it that we don't allow ourselves to just move on. And it's like we really create that continuous suffering and pain and outcomes too for ourselves. And my goal, like I said, with this and having these conversations is to help inspire moms and people out there just to not get consumed by that because it is so easy. I get it. Like we all get
Mm,
it. We've all been there. But you don't have to stay there. You don't have to continue. You get to listen to something like this and be like, you know what, man, that is something I've been struggling with. But and that's awesome to know that I don't have to keep doing this way. I can choose today to start seeing things differently. Yes, you're not going to go to sleep and just be like, you know, fix, voila. I wish there was a magic wand for all that. But, at the same time, it's still a powerful decision that you get to make and can truly start changing the course of your life in ways you could never have imagined. And I think that's so fun and awesome to be able to do for people. Hey, Mama. I know what it's like to feel like you're just going through the motions, showing up for everyone else, but wondering, what about me? You have dreams, you have a purpose, and I truly believe you're meant for more than just surviving the day. That's why I'm offering something really special, a free Radiant Mom breakthrough session with me. This is just a heart-centered conversation where we get to the root of what's been keeping you stuck and help you find real clarity on your next steps. And if by the end of our time together, we both feel like I can support you further on this journey, we can talk about that, but no pressure, no expectations. My goal is for you to walk away with a renewed sense of direction and confidence to take action now. So, if you're ready to shift things in your life, go grab your free session using the calendar link in the show notes before spots fill up. I'd love to connect with you. All right, now let's get back to the show.
yeah, for sure. I really see for folks when we take these first steps in the learn to swim process, and I think this is true in any area where life coaching can be applied, of being very tender and gentle and acknowledging of these first very little steps, like somebody sitting next to the pool, and on one side of their brain they're remembering from the past, so they're feeling terrified about that, or the other side of their brain they're thinking about, but what about when I end up in the middle of the ocean, right? They're in these two outside places, and the place for us to be is where we actually are right now, which is I am breathing and I chose to put myself right here, sitting next to the pool. I don't even have to get in. If that is all somebody does is to
Mhm.
come and to sit by the pool and to breathe and to be able to see the difference between the past and the future and the present, right? I'm okay in this little moment, right?
Yeah.
It's that tiny seed of confidence and safety and self-belief that we grow from. Then the brain's like, but you have to do all these other things. No, 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 no. All we have to do is to be here, and we have breath and
Yeah.
our own internal knowing. When we're quiet enough, we'll know, yes, now it is time for me to step into the water, not to do all the swimming things, but just to walk in the water and
Yeah.
to be in that step. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful place for us to slow down and to really take stock of, yeah, it is these small, tiny things. And it's in any life coaching area,
Yes.
in Learn to Swim,
Yeah.
let yourself be in those little tiny decisions, and they will
Yes.
add up. They will
Yes.
add up.
Yeah, that's why I always talk about the small steps. Like I feel like that's one of the things as moms, like we're so conditioned to want is to do it all. We have to take on the world. We got to do it all. We got to please this person. We got to do this. We can get it all done. But it's like, no, sometimes we got to slow down and just do and stop, like you say, the shoulds. Like, oh, I should be doing this. I should. No, you need to honor where you are and take those times for yourselves and just do what you can when you can. I mean, I still always encourage some kind of action, like, block out a certain time. Like, okay, I'm going to dedicate 20 minutes for this activity and then do it. Great. But don't feel like beat yourself up because something might come up and you have to switch it around or just even feeling like you have to do everything everyone else is doing all the time. Because talk about how quickly you're going to get burnt out, overwhelmed, or talk yourself right back out of it. Just like the people with the swimming, if they start listening to those voices like, well, you should be doing this, blah, 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 then how they're just going to scare themselves right back out of that water and they won't. But the
Mhm.
small steps and just really moving forward when you feel aligned, when you feel right and listen to that intuition, like that's why I believe in that whole inspired action because if you're not in that right place where your sage power, like I'm learning, is, where your power muscles are and all that great energy is showing up, then it doesn't matter what you do. You're just going to kind of, prevent yourself from really receiving what you should receive. And
Mhm.
I'm learning that myself. And I love to see people, and I love to see the changes and the outcomes that people get from just doing these small shifts and realizing, oh, okay, I don't have to do like, let's simplify it kind of, let's simplify things too. Let's not overcomplicate and make it more difficult than it needs to be.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of things that you can do that's easy, attainable, but because our minds all tell us like, oh my God, I got to do this, this, and that, we just immediately talk ourselves out of even trying before we even get started. And that's
Mhm.
one thing I really want to help people to not do is to get held back because of that idea of what could take to do what you want to accomplish.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, get overwhelmed and all the things.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I think about one of the best, I mean, my kids are long since potty training days, but I remember the parent educator at the preschool as everybody's like talking about all the potty training things,
Yeah.
gadgets and timelines and whatever. And she's like, you don't see any kids going to college who don't know how to use the toilet. Like, it's okay. I'm like, right,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
They are meant to do this. We are meant to. It's just like, it's
Yes.
okay.
Oh, yes.
Like,
Oh my gosh. I remember that with my firstborn, I felt like so nervous because I'm like, he's not doing it. And I'm like, when is it going to happen? I'm trying, I'm trying. And I mean, and they said that to me. They're like, don't worry. One day he's just going to like wake up and he's going to get it. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And they were right. And I feel the same way. I do have a 3-year-old right now I am letting him, like, I'm offering it, showing him, but I am not in any way forcing it on him because I know, because I've seen it with my other two kids. Like, you can't like force it. It's more of like they will always offer it, show them how it's done, but they will pick it up and they
mhm,
really do when they are ready. So I'm glad you said that because I think that's a pressure that, especially as a new mom, Lord
mhm,
knows I put myself on all the new mom pressures because I especially, you're young. I was really young. And so you get all these timelines of your child should be saying this or doing this and blah, blah, blah. And it's a lot of pressure because kids are kids and some of them are just going to pick up sooner and easier than other kids, but they really do pick it up when they're meant to. Like it's all about just presenting it to them,
mhm.
giving them that experience, showing them. But I've just never been, it's hard for me, the idea of like forcing certain things sometimes. Sometimes I think sometimes I'm sure it's necessary, but overall, it's all just about that, giving them a good experience with it because I don't want my kids to, fall back and reject it because they're feeling that pressure, you know?
Certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest thing that we can do for our children, the biggest thing I do for my students, the biggest thing I think we can do for ourselves is to believe in the possibilities, to believe in ourselves, right? It's like,
I
okay,
love
you've had
that.
the proof from two other kids. So this third one, you're like, I
Oh, yeah.
believe you really now, you're like, I can be so chill about this because I
Yes.
actually believe you are going to do it, that it
Yes.
is possible. There's nothing like concerning about you that we need to make adaptive changes to this, that you're gonna get it. And for
Yeah.
that child to have just your confidence and
Hmm.
belief in them,
Oh yeah,
they're like, okay, yeah,
I
mom gonna
got
do this
this.
potty thing when I'm
Oh
gonna do
yeah.
this potty thing, right?
Exactly. And I know he will because Lord knows he's boy can already count to 30. He's so smart in so many other ways. Like it's just a matter of, he'll get it. He will. But and that's how it was with my daughter too. I mean, she kind of took a minute where I was like, "Oh goodness, like is she gonna get this before she goes to school?" But she did. Bam, no problem. Like now it's one and done. And that's how it is in so many areas with them. We like I said, again, we put that pressure, but also too like living by example is a great aspect as a parent is us trying to live by example as best as we can. The more we show up for ourselves and work on the things with our confidence and the way we feel about ourselves and the things that we do, they're looking, they're watching, they're picking up on it, whether we like it or not.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
now,
my kid,
yeah, what I was
oh, I was
saying,
gonna say, my kid said to me, he's
mhm.
like, I don't know if I want to run my own business. It looks really stressful. And I was like, okay, well, that tells me what I've been showing you. And I said, well, let me tell you, 90% of what I do, not stressful. If I didn't want to be that, the part that you see me getting stressed about is like the part that I'm trying to grow into, and I'm pushing myself harder in it than I know
Yeah,
what I'm doing. And I'm having this reaction to it. Usually I have to then back off a little bit or, let myself fail forward a little bit and all
yeah,
those kinds of things. But yeah,
yeah.
sometimes I'm a little vocal about those parts of it, but
Oh yeah, we're like we're human, right? Again, there's that
Mhm.
grace you got to give yourself good for you. I mean, you are, and that is part of being an entrepreneur. You're going to constantly have to push yourself out of your comfort zone and beyond because not everybody, a lot of people who start, especially in the coaching world, like they don't have any kind of business degrees or marketing degrees or accounting degrees, so they don't always come into this understanding how a business even works. So it's like then you're having to go from this mindset of thinking, oh, I'm going to help people to being like, oh, running a business is a whole nother ball game. It's not about just showing up and helping people. There's a lot to it that goes with it as well that a lot of people don't think about when they're getting started. And I don't know, like as far as your background, so were you always in the pool business or did you the swimming business?
I basically,
Oh,
basically,
cool.
since I've
Okay.
been doing this for 25 years,
Oh,
basically I've been in the
yes.
in this industry, but I am also a certified life coach. That kind of came
Yes.
secondary
Yeah.
when I because life coaching wasn't really a thing when I started. It was in its early days. So,
Yeah.
but that's what, yeah, when I took time to
Yeah.
look around and see what is everybody else doing, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
everybody else is doing what I'm doing, just not in the swimming pool.
There you go. Yeah, so that's cool. And I would love to hear a little bit. I always am curious from I know you've been in this industry for your business in a long time, but do you recall like what was it kind of like in the beginning? Like of some of the things that you had to learn and take on as you just completely were like, I'm doing this.
Yeah, I mean, it was at a time when before kids, before we were married, my husband and I started the business together.
Oh,
We weren't married at the time. So it was in that stage of life where you're young and dumb and you're just going to try some things, right?
I love it.
But we both had enough background in aquatics. We'd been doing that, like I said, for summers and through high school and college. And I think, I mean, again, this idea of believing in yourself and, for people who are new at life coaching, there's always going to be something that is new and unknown to you, but having this place that you have a certain amount of foundation, a certain amount of anchoring, right? Life coaches can anchor themselves in, I like to help people. I'm good at helping people. Maybe I'm not helping thousands of people yet,
Yeah.
but and I have the area that I'm not, that's new and unknown to me, which is the business side of it. But you drop into, I feel a certain amount of safety and confidence because I have that piece. And that's where we were in the business. Like, yeah, we'd never run a business before, but we knew we were good swim teachers. We
Yes.
knew when we had people in the water, we were going to be very successful at that. So, which my kid, of course, he doesn't watch as much of that part of it. He just watches what happens at home, which is the office part of it, which
Oh,
was the part that, right,
yeah.
of learning and
That's,
discovery.
yep.
We started, before there was the internet. And so just with phone calls and signs around the neighborhood kind of thing.
Yes.
I do love though, I was lucky at that time. One of our first employees, she knew about the internet. She had taken classes about it and about
Nice.
websites. So she's like, "You have to have this thing." And I'm like, "Okay." So she
Sure.
got us started on this thing called a
Nice.
website.
Oh,
And yeah, it got us started there. So, which I'm glad she did because it probably would have taken me a lot longer for me to
mhm.
understand the value and needing that. So we did have that really pretty early on in
Yeah.
the internet days.
Well,
So,
and this is why you shouldn't be afraid to get help because they can like getting the help will save you so much time because it is
mhm,
hard when you're going out there just trying to figure all this stuff out on your own. It's a pain. It's hard. It takes you twice as long. And so it's great to learn from people who have already been through it and it can help give you some ideas that you can start now because even though it may not exactly happen as quickly in that moment now as it took them years to do, it's still going to take you a lot less time than those 3 years, even if it ends up being 6 months instead of, 3 years, because
mhm.
you're getting started doing the things that they wish they knew now. And that's the thing I think is so discouraging for so many people is the idea, like you say, of just getting started. But what's cool, and I don't think people really think about, is that when you make this decision and when you decide to start something, you really don't have a clue a lot of times of what to do. But isn't it amazing too, though, how everything just falls into place? You just take one step at a time of researching, do I want to do an LLC, a corporation, and speaking with this person to learn about that. And then you get move forward with that. And then you learn about the website. And okay, do I need to hire somebody or can I craft this from scratch? It's like all these different steps that you could take. It's amazing like how it really does unfold if you allow yourself to be open to that and not really be so focused on before you even get started all of, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do that? That right there will wear you out
Great.
very, very fast because it is amazing like how things even in just in your life in general, right? It just things always do fall in place, even like the potty training, things may seem a little chaotic in the beginning of like, oh my God, is he ever going to pick this up? And then bam, they just get it. And then you're good, you're solid. So
Great.
I think it's such a fun journey and it's so nice to be able to help people to get that relief and to really, see them just thrive, right? Actually come out. I
Hmm.
can't imagine you like when you see your clients swim for the first time and
Yes.
like have
It's
that
amazing.
smile on their face because they accomplished it. They got it. They did it. I can only imagine. I think it's beautiful what you do and how you help people. And please share with us a little bit about if someone was in your area or because I know you said you also do stuff online, right?
We do. I know.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seems kind of crazy, but
Yeah.
yeah, we started that thankfully back in 2019.
Nice.
Put all our material online, and I mean, both of us shared stories of learning to swim on our own. And like you said, if we'd had a little bit of help, it probably would have gone a little bit faster.
Yeah.
And that's what really the online program is about, is that people have community pools. People go to community swimming lessons all the time, but they're teaching them more advanced things than they're ready for usually. That's the folks that we see that they're like, something is not connecting. And so that's where our online programs really help people. Okay, hang on. Let's get these underlying foundational steps that are getting skipped,
Oh,
and both the mental and the physical ones. And so we really can bring that information to people online and then, with coaching like this. But so that's on adultswimlesson.com is where folks could go if you were interested in that. And then we're, of course, have beautiful things as you were talking about. It must be so fun to see your people. My best hug ever. I can still always feel Rhonda's hug on the back of the boat in Hawaii after she got to jump off the back of the boat, go snorkeling, this life dream that she had. And the hug that she gave me afterwards was amazing. So, we've got retreats next year in Hawaii. We're putting one together in Mexico and Arizona and Boston. So we have lots of retreat places as well for people to come in and learn to swim in 3 days and then go home and take it in. And we support them in their community pools of how they continue their swim journey.
that is so amazing. I bet that's a
Mhm.
lot of fun too. Yeah. Oh gosh, the Hawaii one especially. Love that.
Mhm.
That is awesome. So yes, everyone tech tuning in. If that sounds like something you'd like to go experience, if you're someone who would like to embrace swimming, if that's something, especially as an adult, like that's awesome. I mean, there's nothing like really embracing a fear and like going after it and really seeing on the other side that you really had nothing to fear all along. Like it's good, it's fun, and it can be amazing. And the experience that can come after because you open yourself to it, oh, I mean, it's so worth it. But the people too that you get at retreats are fun because the people you get to meet, the experience you have is unlike anything else. So that of course we'll keep all that in the show notes and you can keep us updated, but be sure to check her out. I can't thank you enough for being part of the show. I always open the floor, of course. Is there any final piece of advice or tip that you'd love to share with the audience?
Any final piece of advice? I'm going back to that believe in yourself. And it is, Mary, you talked about it too, of telling people to be in action. So there's this, our Foundations of Change program is really these 2 parts mental to 1 part physical. You do need to take an action step, but it's about finding the action step that is loving and builds your self-belief. It's not all of the action steps, but who do I want to be? I want to be a person of safety, of confidence, of calm. What's that one step? What's the one thing to do to step into action? And then what's the story you're going to tell about yourself when you do that action step? We don't want it to be the story of that wasn't enough. You should have done it all. No. Like, look at me. I took
Yeah.
the step. I just put into the search bar adultswimlesson.com.
Yes.
I didn't contact them or anything else, but I put it in there, right?
Yes, you made a
That's a
step.
step.
It is. And then those are, I mean, that's where that celebrating the small wins. Like we got to celebrate these little things. Like we think it's so small, but they're huge. And even small things do make a big difference because that is part of a big part of like the work we do with retraining a lot of the conditioning and programming and the habits that we have is doing these small little things that don't trigger like that subconscious from being like freak out, freak out. And it's like
Mhm.
just these small little steps will slowly create new pathways and new, habits eventually that you're right, it will take you further and further and get more and more and more and easier and easier. And then next thing you know, you just are thriving in ways you just once, like I said, for me, even now, like just the life I have, there was a time I would think it's so impossible. And so, but here I am. So yeah, I love this. This has been a great conversation with you. Again, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you.
Such a unique way to serve so many with such a major need. So happy to have met Cori. Here are the key takeaways from this episode. Acknowledge your fear without shame. Your fear is valid, but it doesn't have to define you. Recognizing it with self-compassion is the first step to overcoming it. Your inner determination matters. No matter where you start, your willingness to try and keep going is what leads to success. Small efforts build confidence. Your mindset shapes your learning. How you talk to yourself impacts how you progress. Shifting your internal narrative to one of patience and possibility makes all the difference. Let go of limiting beliefs. The stories you've told yourself about what you can or cannot do might not be true. A relaxed, open approach helps you move past fear. Support changes everything. Surrounding yourself with encouragement, whether in a class, community, or even through online resources, helps you feel safe and capable. Reframe your past for growth. Negative experiences don't have to hold you back. You have the power to shift how you see them and use them as stepping stones. Stay small, stay consistent. Progress happens one step at a time, whether it's learning to swim or tackling another fear. Small, mindful actions lead to big transformations. You are more capable than you think. Your journey starts with one step and belief in yourself. To learn more about Cori and her offers, be sure to visit her at adultswimlesson.com. Also, for anyone needing support towards achieving the goals you set out towards the life you desire, I invite you to visit me at marydibblecoaching.com to schedule a free call for us to connect and see what is keeping you stuck and what your next steps look like so you can start taking action now towards your dreams. Thank you all for tuning in and supporting the show. We truly appreciate you all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Until next time, much love.